Welcome to EG Media, your go-to channel for all things financial. Whether you're here to learn, get inspired, or stay ahead of the curve, we've got you covered with expert insights, in-depth tutorials, and the latest industry news. Just 5 days after the end of the Civil War, President Abraham Lincoln is the final of the 600,000 deaths in America's bloodiest conflict. The country is divided, and the world looks at American democracy as a failed experiment. But what most don't realize is that a new era has dawned. The nation is entering an age of advancement. And from the void left by the death of perhaps the greatest statesman we will ever know, a new breed of leader will emerge. The Rockefellers, the Fords, the Carnegies were the first generation of what we know as now the entrepreneurial rock stars, or what today are the Buffets and the Jobs and the Gates. They were the ones that set the standard for the American dream. They owned a new frontier, literally and figuratively, of who we are as a culture. Men of insight, innovation, and ingenuity, the likes of which the world has never seen. And over the next 5 decades, this small group will change history, propelling the United States of America to greatness. These were great men with a vision that nobody else had. And that's why in the last century, that 50-year period, we built the world.
I feel nauseous, believe me. Never had a lot of shit come easy. Had to work hard.
The first transcontinental railroad. At 16, Cornelius Vanderbilt buys a small ferry boat with a $100 loan. He quickly earns a reputation as a cutthroat businessman, willing to use any means necessary to get ahead.
Back then, it was just pure competition. My brain against your brain, my effort against your effort. You just competed. That's the way they looked at business. It was the wild, wild west, and by hook or crook, that was just win or lose, and the best win.
He was a tough guy, getting into scraps with other men, beating the hell out of them and knocking them unconscious. That competitive streak and that toughness very much defined his character. His single ferry soon becomes a fleet of ships, transporting goods and passengers to every corner of the growing country. Vanderbilt will become so synonymous with shipping that his nickname becomes the Commodore.
I think Vanderbilt recognized that what was going to be important is transporting goods from one place to another, and he had this idea that required infrastructure, and not infrastructure the government was going to provide, but that he was going to provide.
Over the next 40 years, Vanderbilt builds the largest shipping empire in the world. Then, at the peak of his power, just before the Civil War, he does the unthinkable. Work is underway on the first transcontinental railroad, and the Commodore realizes that its completion will transform America, slashing cross-country travel time by months. Railroads were absolutely liberating because the railroads allowed cheap and efficient transportation from one corner of America to another. Vanderbilt sees his future. He sells all of his ships and invests everything he has in railroads. You talk about seeing around corners as an element of success. That's what differentiates the good leader. Not many people have it. Not many people can predict that corner. That is a characteristic of great leaders. His decision to invest heavily in rail pays off. By the end of the war, Vanderbilt is the richest man in America, with a net worth of over $68 million, the equivalent of $75 billion today. But all that money can't buy his escape from the war's devastation. The end of the war.
In the wake of the Civil War, the country mourns publicly, while Vanderbilt does so privately. The first card is the past, the second, the present, and the third is the future. There has been an unexpected loss, someone close to you, my son George. He died in the war. What about the future? Chariot, there will be a war. War's over. No, your war is about to begin. Hey, watch it, man.
Tormented by the loss of his favorite son, Vanderbilt's empire is more vulnerable than ever before. For Vanderbilt, this was a great tragedy. He had one son who had that same sense of physical strength and ability, and he had died when he was still quite young. It was deeply troubling for the Commodore. For years, Vanderbilt groomed George to take over the family business. Now the Commodore is forced to rely on his less accomplished son, William. Vanderbilt owns the only rail bridge into New York City. It's the gateway to the country's largest port, supplying the entire continent. Vanderbilt knows this is the hammer he needs to beat his rivals into submission.
Sit down. I want you to close the Albany Bridge.
Without the bridge, every other railroad is shut out of New York City. Vanderbilt, in essence, single-handedly erected a blockade around the nation's largest city, cutting it off from contact with the rest of the country. He was now asserting his dominance.
Ladies and gentlemen, this train will not be going any farther.
We're going to watch them bleed, the railroads.
The Civil War has left America in ruins. For the first time in its history, the nation must rebuild. Over 50,000 miles of railroad track have transformed the country. Commodore Cornelius Vanderbilt grew up poor, but has created a railroad empire, making him the richest man in the country. At 72, he's 30 years past the average life expectancy, and his competitors see him as weak. It's a mistake they'll come to regret. Locked in a battle for control of the rail lines east of the Mississippi, the Commodore is holding nothing back.
I want you to close the Albany Bridge. We're going to watch them bleed.
Vanderbilt controls the only bridge into New York City, America's busiest port. Seizing an opportunity, he sets up a blockade.
This train will not be going any farther.
What do you mean?
Shutting the bridge leaves millions of pounds of cargo unable to reach the rest of the country and slowly bleeds his competitors dry. Before their stock is worthless, the presidents of the rival railroad try to sell all their shares. Word quickly reaches Wall Street, triggering a massive sell-off.
Come on, put some money in there. Come in. New York Central shares are dropping fast.
How low?
$20 a share.
Buy everything you can.
Vanderbilt was buying all of that stock that suddenly flooded the market at rock-bottom prices.
3 aces.
In just days, Vanderbilt takes control of the rival railroad, creating the largest single rail company in America. To make his empire complete, he must gain control of the Erie line. The Erie was one of the relatively early publicly traded corporations.
Vanderbilt had the advantage of millions and millions of dollars. Deep pockets are always an advantage when you're trying to gain control of a corporation.
Vanderbilt instructs his agents to buy up as much stock as possible,
Buy Erie, buy Erie.
demanding control of the company by the end of the week.
Erie at 45.
It's a vintage Vanderbilt move, one he pioneered, known today as a hostile takeover.
Erie 50.
But his attempt will be thwarted by an even more ingenious idea cooked up by two unknowns, Jay Gould and Jim Fisk.
All right. The mistake that the Erie board had made is that they have telegraphed where they need to expand without securing the land first.
Gould and Fisk are stuck in middle management at the Erie, but they represent the new America that Vanderbilt is helping to create, one of self-made men with ruthless ambition. And after years of watching the Commodore dominate, they're eager to build their own empire. They recognize Vanderbilt's plan to buy the line and see the opportunity they've been waiting for.
Competition, I think, it's good for the system. And it's really, I think, what most business is about. It's doing a better job on out-hustling your competitors.
Gould and Fisk begin printing new shares of stock. Using a printing press they set up in the basement of the Erie offices. Each share they print dilutes Vanderbilt's stake in the company, and they print over 100,000.
There was some fine print in one of the clauses of the Erie's charter that allowed the board of directors to issue new stock unbeknownst to the shareholders. Go.
And so the more shares that Vanderbilt bought, the more he had to buy in order to approach that magic majority. Their plan is known as watering down stock. Highly illegal today, at the time it had never been imagined. Its simplicity is brilliant, and Wall Street is never the same.
The only rule was, there were no rules. Whatever it took to put your competition out of business, they were going to try to do it.
Unaware, Vanderbilt continues to buy.
Think of the look on his face.
Oh God, I wish I could be a fly on that wall. Laughter.
The freshly printed shares are hand-delivered to Vanderbilt.
Here are the Erie shares. I assume we control the company now.
A toast to money.
To Vanderbilt's money.
Vanderbilt has bought $7 million of watered-down stock from Gould and Fisk, today worth over $1 billion. Laughter. Vanderbilt has been underestimated before, but if you come at the king, you shouldn't expect to win.
To Vanderbilt's money.
Jay Gould and Jim Fisk have fleeced the Commodore out of millions, and they want the world to know it.
Thank you. Don't mind if I do. It is no secret what Vanderbilt has been trying to do. He owns more railroads than anybody else.
Well, Gould and me, we have struck a blow for the little guy. Now sure, he may be rich, and sure, he may be powerful, but somebody had to stand up to the old bastard.
It was a humiliating defeat for the Commodore, a man who was so fiercely competitive, who wanted to win at absolutely everything, to whom money was so important, and here he was, defeated and insulted publicly by Gould and Fisk. Gould and Fisk may be on top of the world, but they've awakened a sleeping lion. Vanderbilt vows to never be beaten again.
They don't think in terms of money, they think in terms of winning. Now, naturally, if you win big in business, money follows. But that shouldn't be your objective. Your objective should be to win. To win. Win all the time. Not sometimes, every time.
Vanderbilt immediately begins looking for a new edge. He realizes that the railroads have been overbuilt, and the future of the industry isn't in building new lines, but in transporting new cargo.
Innovation is not a big breakthrough invention every time. Innovation is a constant thing. But if you don't have an innovative company coming to work every day to find a better way, if you don't have a company, you're getting ready to die on the vine.
If Vanderbilt can corner the markets and see on a new source of freight, one that can keep his trains constantly full, he'll be able to control the railroad industry. And the Commodore knows just where to look. Oil is revolutionizing life in America. Crude from the ground is being refined into kerosene, a safe and inexpensive source of light. And that access to light is completely changing the way Americans live. Before kerosene, the average American didn't have access to a consistent light source. When the sun came down, darkness ruled. Kerosene is a phenomenon that will forever change the world. And Vanderbilt knows it's his next opportunity to cash in. The idea is to see what's missing. That's what a creative entrepreneur does. He serves people with things that they need. Some people can't find a new thing to do, but sometimes you see something that everybody has to have. Oh man, I got to give them this. And then you got to work on it because they need it. Vanderbilt sees the demand for kerosene skyrocketing all across the country. He knows that to meet the demand, the makers of kerosene will need a new way to ship their oil. If Vanderbilt can corner the market on those oil shipments, he'll propel himself back to the top of the railroad industry. All he needs to do now is find a supplier.
Vanderbilt is hoping to pluck from obscurity.
That oil man is John D. Rockefeller. Why are we paying so much on plumbers? We run a refinery, so we start making our own pipes. At this rate, we'll be lucky if we break even this year. If you want to call it a day, John, just say, baby crying, I should go.
Is everything all right?
It's fine.
At the age of 27, Rockefeller is in the early stages of building his refining business, but his company is teetering on the verge of bankruptcy. Vanderbilt sees him as someone he can manipulate to his advantage. An exclusive deal to ship Rockefeller's oil will guarantee that the Commodore's trains stay filled with cargo. Vanderbilt invites Rockefeller to meet with him in New York. For the young oil man, the meeting is the opportunity of a lifetime, a way out of his troubles, and a way to save his company from complete collapse. Rockefeller respected Vanderbilt. He could see what he had achieved. Vanderbilt was setting the pattern and the archetype of what Rockefeller himself wanted to be. He wanted to be the Vanderbilt of petroleum. That's the way he saw himself. As Rockefeller prepares for his trip to New York, Vanderbilt's plan is set in motion. The train departs Cleveland at 6:25 a.m. America is rising. The country is experiencing a period of growth like none it's ever seen. Railroads have united the states, and commerce flows with a speed never before thought possible. The man at the forefront of this explosive change is Renigal, is en Waisoya di Bolpo, and Greatsoki Borisisau and de Warnsom Shell Toad. But at 76, he realizes that the railroads have been overbuilt. To stay ahead of the competition, the Commodore turns to a new exploding industry and a struggling young oil man, John D. Rockefeller.
Rockefeller is raised in a poor Cleveland household, but even as a young man, he yearns for something more, something bigger, and he knows it isn't going to be handed to him. As a young man, he shows a strong entrepreneurial streak, starting his own small business selling candy to local children. Thank you very much. Here's 3 pieces.
From an early age, Rockefeller helps to support his family, mostly because he was never able to rely on his father.
It cures cancer. Folks, that is right, it cures cancer. Now you're asking yourself, sir, I bet in your mind you're saying, Bill, is this true?
John Rockefeller's father is a con man,
Rebecca I met 7 years ago, she had pneumonia.
better known around Cleveland as Devil Bill.
Who would like to buy some? $1.25 a bottle. Yes, sir.
He disappears for months at a time, leaving his family without money to support themselves.
I'm only here for one day. Once I'm gone, I am gone. I may not be back. Never trust anybody, son.
John D. Rockefeller. With his father gone, Rockefeller is forced to quit school and get a job to support his mother and siblings. His work ethic and intuition will become the building blocks for the American dream.
My great-grandfather, John D. Rockefeller, was an absolutely brilliant businessman. When he started out, he wasn't even in oil or anything. He worked at it very, very hard, and there's an ethic in the Rockefeller family of hard work.
Well, that is all for today. Thank you for joining the show. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button so you never miss out on future content. And if you have any thoughts, questions, or suggestions, drop them in the comments below. We love hearing from you.